So what are the top 10 mistakes made for GCSE Maths? Mistake number 3 is not being familiar with your scientific calculator, so the actual calculator that you will take with you into those calculator exams. If you've been using your phone for the whole of year 10 and year 11 and all your homework and all your past papers and whatever, that is a huge mistake, because you're not going to have your phone in the actual exam. And your phone calculator is very different to how your scientific calculator works. You do need to be familiar with it. You need to revise your own calculator. Not only because we want to be confident in using our calculator really quickly and really efficiently, so that we know that we're not making any errors, mistakes in the calculator, or some things like that. You press equals and it doesn't give you an answer, it just says error. And it's having that practice to know, why have I been given an error? Because if you didn't know that, and you're in the exam and it says, well, I've done the calculation I thought I needed to do, but I've got an error, you might then get stuck on the question, when really it's just this tiny detail in the calculator that you need to go back and edit. But if you've got no idea in this whole formula which bit's wrong, and why my calculator has come back with an error, then you've ruined the whole question, haven't you, basically? A good example of that is the quadratic formula. Inside the square root symbol, you've got the bit b squared. If b is a negative and you put in -5 squared, sometimes the calculator, it depends, sometimes it squares it and gives you -25, which is incorrect. Any number squared is positive, so even a negative, if you then square it, becomes positive. Now what that actually means in our calculator is, in the square root, you might end up with a number overall that's also negative. And in the same logic, you cannot square root a negative number. It's impossible. You can't square root a negative number because all numbers squared are positive. So your calculator will come up with math error. And you go, well, out of this whole quadratic formula, I don't know which bit's wrong. It's the bit in the square root. It's the negative. There's an incorrect negative in there. And if you haven't practiced using your calculator, and if you haven't come up with an error in one of your actual homeworks or your past paper questions, you won't know how to fix it in the exam. And finally, to do with that is also knowing all the tips and tricks. So, for example, did you know that you can actually get a table to come up? So, you know when you have to plot out a graph and it has the XY table. Did you know that you can get your calculator to do that for you? And it's actually more accurate than you doing it manually, each box every time, trying to sub it all in. Did you know that it does that? Did you know how? On your particular calculator? Did you know that there's actually a trick where you can look up on your calculator highest common factor and lowest common multiple, which if that comes up in the calculator paper, it's right there for you. Did you know that you can use the calculator to figure out how to simplify a really big ratio? And also, are you familiar with using the answer button to copy your answer so that you don't round it too soon? All of these tips and tricks, do you know all of those?